We've learned about present tense and future tense, so now it's time to take a look at the past tense. There are several tenses that can be used to describe the past, but let's start with the imperfect tense. So what type of past action does imperfect describe, and how does it differ from another tense for the past, which is called present perfect? It is the case that both of these tenses are needed because they are quite different. Present perfect describes a sudden and completed action, while the imperfect describes a progressive or habitual action in the past. We'll come back to this distinction in more detail after seeing the actual forms. For now, let's see how this tense is formed. Now, we have already seen how the future tense is formed for the first and second conjugations. The imperfect indicative is formed in a very similar way, using just a slight modification. Where the future tense adds the infix be between the present stem and the endings, the imperfect will instead use the infix ba. So as always, make sure you know how to identify the present stem by looking at the infinitive, and then drop the final letters. That means you keep the thematic vowel, place the infix, and then finish with the personal ending. Here are the forms for the first and second conjugation using amo, amare, and moneo, monere as our sample verbs. Amabam, amabas, amabat, amabamus, amabatis, amabant. Monebam, monebas, monebat, monebamus, monebatis, monebant. As you can see, the forms are fairly easy to memorize, but notice that the first person singular uses M instead of O for this particular tense. For the rest of the conjugation, once you have dropped the RE from the infinitive, everything will be normal, with the infix ba and then the personal endings. So where the future tense was using bo, bi, bu, the imperfect is using ba, 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 ba. Now that we know how to conjugate verbs in the imperfect, we need to learn more about the use of this tense, especially since Latin, which is so much more precise than English, has several tenses that describe actions in the past. On one hand, we have the simple past, also called perfect tense. The word perfect comes from the preposition per, meaning through, and factus, which is the past participle of the verb facio, facere, meaning to make. So altogether, the word perfect means completely done, finished, or over. For example, when we say, yesterday I ate 3 donuts, the action is done and the donuts are gone. This would require the perfect tense. But the imperfect, as the name tells us, refers to the action as being not perfect, or not thoroughly completed. So although the action is certainly in the past, rather than being finished, we would regard it as progressive or ongoing in the past, perhaps customary or repeated. Let's see some examples where we compare the two. The speaker addressed the crowd versus the speaker was addressing the crowd. In the first one, the speaker has finished the speech and is probably quiet now. In the second one, the speaker is described addressing the crowd for a certain period of time. It's an ongoing action. Let's try a different sentence. I was studying Latin when my mother called me. In this sentence, Latin will use 2 different tenses. First, we use the imperfect for I was studying, which clearly describes an action in progress. Then we use the simple past for my mother called me, a sudden action, punctual or historical, and clearly completed. In English, the simple past, or perfect tense, requires just one word, as in I did, I went, I bought. The imperfect requires more, depending on how you want to specify the action. According to the context, the imperfect tense can also refer to actions that are habitual or repeated, or simply attempted or just beginning. Look at the different ways we can translate this one sentence. Magister discipulos docebat. This can mean the teacher was teaching the students, or the teacher used to teach the students, or the teacher kept teaching the students. We often find the imperfect being used for descriptions in the past whenever the action is durative. This is called background condition because the description applies to both before and after the moment being described. Also, look for adverbial repetitive expressions like semper, meaning always, or saepe, meaning often, to confirm. Erant viae duae. There were two roads. So the roads were there before as well as after they were noticed and described. This is an ongoing background condition. Vir fessus erat. The man was tired. So he was tired before I spoke and probably even after. Rosae rubrae erant. The roses were red. They were red before I mentioned them and will continue to be red after I stop noticing them. Let's now see this tense being used in other sentences. Poetae Romani de silvis agrisque fabulas semper narrabant. Viri cum pueris saepe agros arabant. Agricola tuba servos semper vocabat. Servi fidi ex villa properabant. With imperfect tense now understood, let's check comprehension.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.